What is going on, guys? Your boy Joey 672 coming to you guys with a video right now. So I want to go over obviously the two defensive tackles for the Philadelphia Eagles that are making a lot of money, and Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. Now, when I talk about Fletcher Cox, it's really hard for me to say that, you know, this is going to be probably one of the most important years for Fletcher Cox. Number one, he's 30, 31. I forgot whatever his age is. And, you know, Javon Hargrave just got, pretty much had a new contract, 2 years ago, with that 4 years, $39 million. Fletcher Cox is a $23 million cap hit. Okay. Now, I need to see some production from this position group. I can't afford Fletcher Cox to go into a season, which I was really upset about his production. I understand it's not all about sacks, but when you pay someone over $100 million, okay, in Fletcher Cox, you expect more production. It just seems like he disappears. I mean, 6 games into the season, he had a sack and a half, and you're going to tell me, well, Javon Hargrave wasn't playing next to him. Then I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, so if Javon Hargrave isn't playing next to him, then why is he getting paid that much money then? You know what I mean? Like, that's why I don't get why he's getting paid that much money. If he can't take on double teams, Aaron Donald can take on double teams. He can get through the line and push piles of offensive linemen all over each other. Okay, this is what I don't get, guys. Like, I understand it. Like I said, it's not all about the sacks, but Fletcher Cox, like, I'm telling you right now, like, this is why when the Eagles hold on to players for too long, they just dip in production. When you hold on for players for way too long, that's what happens. Zach Ertz is another story. Unfortunately, Alshon Jeffrey never worked out. At the time, the contract was great, but, it just dipped in production. But when you hold on to players for way too long, this is what happens, that by the time the Eagles want to trade a player, nobody wants them, and no one thinks that they're worth a big pick. That's the big problem I have, because if Fletcher Cox, I understand he had 6.5 sacks, don't get me wrong, 6.5 sacks for the year, but I'm telling you, like, six games in, you only have a sack and a half. That's just so... It's not enough for me to call him, to pay him over $100 million on that big contract that he's earning right now. They restructured him after the season. They saved about $5 million, something like that. It wasn't crazy big. But Fletcher Cox, I would definitely at one point, give him a pay cut, ask for a pay cut or something, because it's just not there. Like, do you think Fletcher Cox did a lot last year? 6.5 sacks, it may seem like it, but at the same time, it's really not, guys. Like, his production level, and if Fletcher Cox gets hurt, it's even worse. And that's when Javon Hargrave comes in. Now, Javon Hargrave had what? He had about 4.5 sacks. Okay, so it wasn't bad for his time that he was out with that injury beginning of the year. Didn't show up till, later in the year, obviously. But 4.5 sacks. I think Javon Hargrave would have done better than Fletcher Cox this year, 100%, if he was healthy from the beginning of the season. Okay, Hargrave is making that 4 years, $39 million contract. It's a big contract, guys. We just signed prior to that signing, we signed Malik Jackson to 3 years, $30 million. He gets hurt the first game, out for the whole year. They go out and sign another defensive tackle in Javon Hargrave. And I think, last year with Javon Hargrave, I think obviously he's changing schemes from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Steelers play the 3-4, okay? And on top of everything else, he was hurt. So it was hard for him to get back in production. But there were times like when he came back, he was getting in the backfield. He was being that pass rusher I know Javon Hargrave could be. I think he's one of the most underrated pass rushers in the league. I think he is. But unfortunately, he played good for a few games and then kind of disappeared for a while. This is what happens sometimes. Brandon Graham almost has double-digit sacks. He pretty much disappears the last 6 games. I understand why. It depends on who's blocking who and, what offensive lines are facing you at those weeks. But I saw no production. Defensive tackles are just, they have got to be on it this year. Fletcher Cox has to be on it this year, because I'm telling you right now, I know people are going to complain at me and say that it's not about the sacks, it's about the quarterback hurries, it's about the pressure. You give pressure on this defensive line, you're winning games. Okay, I understand that. But when a guy gets paid that much money, when these two guys are getting paid that much money, I'm expecting these guys to do well up the middle. I'm expecting these guys to get free. If I see these guys getting blocked every game, then there's a problem. Then this money that they're getting is not even worth what they're getting paid for. Okay, I want Fletcher Cox. I'm hoping that Fletcher Cox is one of those guys that we're not holding on to too long. Okay, because he's getting older now. I want to see him play better in his prime and see, I think he still can. But to 6 games later, I understand this whole team was a mess, but I should see more numbers from Fletcher Cox earlier in the year. And I say Aaron Donald's name because I think Aaron Donald's the best defensive tackle in the league, hands down. I think Fletcher Cox is better against the run than he is against the pass. I think Aaron Donald is better against the pass than he is against the run. I think Aaron Donald's a better pass rusher. I think they're two completely opposite defensive tackles when it comes to their skill set. Okay, and Hargrave, I think he's almost the same thing, but I know he's a nice balance between the pass and the run as well. But this is what I'm talking about, guys. When you hold on to players for this long, Fletcher Cox cannot disappear for 6 games with 1.5 sacks. I'm sorry, but for a $23 million cap hit, it's way too much for me, at least. Because if that's the case, if he does this again this year, yeah, he's gonna have to take a pay cut or something, because it's not worth it in the end. Like, if Aaron Donald's on the Philadelphia Eagles and he's literally, as long as he's doing the things that he's gonna do, if he's taking a guard and he's throwing him into a tackle and he's pretty much pancaking 2 guys at one time, yeah, there's production, but I'm not seeing much production out of Fletcher Cox. There should be more out of him. And I'm not just talking about sacks. There's games where he completely does nothing. He gets double teamed and it's like he's done. And they're gonna tell me, well, Javon Hargrave is not playing. And I'm sitting where, why is this guy getting paid over $100 million? Why is he earning that contract that he's making then if he can't take double teams? I've seen Aaron Donald take double teams. He gets skinny between the 2 guys and makes it like it's nothing and sits there. But I need more production out of these defensive tackles. Javon Hargrave has promised us that, this past offseason, he's like, you haven't seen anything yet. I can't wait to get out there. And I know Javon Hargrave could play. He had 4.5 sacks with the short amount of time, he had with us here this year because, getting off that injury, then having to build himself back up. I don't think he was 100%, obviously, from the, coming off the injury. But I think he would have played better than Fletcher Cox, honestly. And, if whoever gets those one-on-ones, it should be, pretty much not, it should be relatively easy. If you got a one-on-one, you're doing a good thing. That's why if Fletcher Cox takes the double team, or Javon Hargrave takes the double team, then that defensive end gets the one-on-one. So it really helps everybody out at the end of the day. Like I said, it's not about the sacks, but when I look at this, it's all about the quarterback pressures and all that stuff. When I look at this, I kind of say to myself, there's got to be more production here, because what I'm seeing is Fletcher Cox, he's disappearing for a lot of games. I don't care, if he's only got like 2 quarterback pressures for 1 game, it means absolutely nothing, because we're not getting turnovers because of it, okay? I didn't have the numbers for those, but that's why, these numbers have to be better. They do. Like I said, for the millionth time, it's not about the sacks, but it's alarming that this guy gets that paid and he disappears for that many games, okay? And Fletcher Cox wasn't even injured. Javon Hargrave, obviously, new system, first year into the system, getting used to it. It definitely has a big mold into what he could do. He was a nose tackle for the Steelers, so totally different. So I'm hoping Javon comes real strong this year, and Fletch just needs to be Fletch and go back to what he was, because this is getting to the point where we're holding on to a guy that is just literally leaking our pockets, is emptying our pockets, and the value's not there. Okay, it's just not there right now. I haven't been happy, and don't tell me you're happy with these defensive tackles, what they did. Obviously, the injury with Javon Hargrave, and then Fletcher Cox got injured pretty much the end of the year, but he came back in. But other than that, guys, that's really it. I want to know about what you guys think about Fletcher Cox, and Javon Hargrave, and just what they need to do this year to be successful. And do you think is Fletcher Cox dipping down in production? Is he not going to be a great player? Is he, should the Eagles decide to trade him next year? That's a whole nother thing too, on building pieces around. So other than that, guys, that's pretty much it, guys. I will see you guys later. Appreciate everybody watching. Jake's code up, Floss. Peace out, guys. Peace.